Hello, this is Mrs. Ross, and this is lesson 3.3, Asymptotes and in Behavior. So we have two different type of asymptotes we're going to talk about today. There's more than this, but we can only handle the two for right now. So vertical and horizontal asymptotes. So an asymptote is a line on the graph that a function approaches, but it doesn't cross it, okay? And it's not part of the function, not part of the function. For example, this graph right here that we have has a vertical asymptote right here at x equals 2. It doesn't cross x equals 2. It has a horizontal asymptote at y equals 1. It doesn't cross y equals 1. Okay, so let's try it. So we have a vertical asymptote at x equals 0, okay? And I'm not really going to describe the behavior close to the asymptote. I mean, the function goes in the positive infinity direction and then the negative infinity direction. So over here we have two horizontal asymptotes. We have one at x equals 1. Or, I'm sorry, my bad, that's going to be, so horizontal asymptotes are y equals. And then another one at y equals -1. Okay, and as the function approaches y equals -1, it goes to negative infinity, and as it approaches 1, it goes to positive infinity. Okay, now you try. Okay, so this one has several things going on. We have a couple of vertical asymptotes. We've got one at x equals -2 and another one at x equals 5. And then we have a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0. So even though the function crosses here, y equals 0, it doesn't cross here and it doesn't cross here. We're acknowledging that as an asymptote. All right, end behavior. So end behavior is how the function behaves at both ends of its domain. So remember, domain is x. What is happening at both ends? For example, what we have f of x approaches negative infinity as x approaches negative infinity here. Okay, so this is going to go on forever this way, and x also goes on forever in that direction. All right, let's change colors here. Over here, we have f of x approaches infinity as x approaches infinity. That's on this side, because it goes on forever in that direction. Okay, another example. F of x approaches infinity as x approaches infinity. So we have that here. We also have f of x approaches -4, see here, as x approaches negative infinity. So as this goes on forever in this direction, it's not going to cross this line or this asymptote because we've got a horizontal asymptote at -4. Okay. This is another example. We've got f of x approaches 0. See, it's coming to 0. It's approaching 0 as x approaches positive and negative infinity. So as x goes to negative infinity, it's approaching 0, and as x goes to positive infinity, it's going to 0. We have a horizontal asymptote at y is equal to 0. Probably have a vertical one at x equals 0, but okay, in behavior. Here we go. All right, So the end behavior of this, and whenever you see f of x, just think y. It's y. So as this approaches 1, as this approaches this line right here, x approaches positive and negative infinity. So you can see that. Here's the positive infinity, here's the negative infinity as y approaches 1. Let me change colors. Okay, over here we got all manner of strangeness. So as f of x approaches infinity, so infinity is on this side, x approaches infinity. So as this goes that way, x also goes that way forever. Same thing happens down here, just to negative. Now these are end functions. This is not what's happening in the middle, okay? End behavioral functions. So down here we have, as this approaches negative infinity, so does x. Okay? All right, next one. Okay. This is do the following for each graph. Identify the vertical and horizontal asymptotes of the function. Describe the end behavior. Determine the end behavior of the function. Okay. All right, so let's see what we got here. For A, it looks as though there is a vertical here at 1 and then at negative 1. So we have x is equal to negative 1, x is equal to 1, because it's not crossing this line right here. Okay, we don't have no horizontal because the function is everywhere. And then B, the end behavior. So as f of x approaches negative or positive infinity, so this is positive, this is negative, we have x approaches negative 1, and then as it approaches, again, positive and negative infinity, see, negative infinity, positive infinity, x approaches 1. Delightful. Okay. Okay, so we've got to do the same thing here. So we have A, so this is the asymptote one. So we have vertical asymptotes at, let's see, we've got one here. So that's x equals 2. We've got one here, x equals negative 3. And then we have one, it looks like we have one here, because like this doesn't cross and that doesn't cross, so that's x equals 1. We do have a horizontal asymptote right here. So that's y is equal to 1. And B is what is my end function, my end, as f of x or y approaches 1, x approaches positive or negative infinity. So that happens here, at this end behavior, and here. Okay, let me erase this and I'll do this next side. Okay, and then on this side, we have a horizontal asymptote at here, right here, y equals 2. We don't really have a vertical asymptote. It's going to cross this line. So, and then B, we know that f of x or y approaches 2. As it approaches 2, x approaches negative infinity. Okay, and then down here, as f of x or y approaches negative infinity, x is going to approach positive infinity. So that's it. All right, let me know if you have any questions.